Hey, hey, hey. Time for an out-of-this-world story from rSpace. Forgiveness isn't mandatory, especially when someone betrays your boundaries and breaks your trust. Today on rSpace, we stir the pot. First up, nothing says I love you like checking if you're still desirable by hopping into bed with someone else. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take my girlfriend back after she cheated just to see if she still had it? Advice needed. I, 30 male, have been dating my girlfriend, Rachel, 27 female, for 2 years. She's always been confident and charismatic, which is one of the things I love about her. Our relationship seems solid, good communication, lots of shared interests, and we were even talking about moving in together. A few weeks ago, Rachel admitted to me that she cheated on me during a night out with her friends. She hooked up with some guy she met at a bar. I was completely blindsided. When I asked her why she did it, she said it wasn't about me or our relationship, but because she wanted to see if she still had it. I told her that was a terrible excuse, and she started crying, saying it was a stupid mistake and that she regretted it immediately. She begged me to forgive her, saying she learned her lesson and that it would never happen again. But I can't get over the fact that she was willing to risk our relationship for something so shallow. She didn't cheat because she was unhappy or because there was a problem between us. She cheated purely to stroke her ego. Now, Rachel and some of our mutual friends are calling me unforgiving, saying that everyone makes mistakes and that I'm throwing away a great relationship over one bad choice. They say I should focus on her remorse and give her another chance. I feel like staying with her would mean betraying my own boundaries, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm being too harsh. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take her back? Let's see what the community thinks. First up, not the a-hole. Congrats, you still have it, but you sure as hell don't have me. The mutual friends are just as trashy as her. You'd be crazy to take her back. Someone else offers, it's time to go. A year, 5 years, 10 years, and 2 kids from now, she's still going to wonder if she still has it when she sees a cute guy. Does she still have the ability to find a guy that will have sex with her? Yes, she'll probably have that for a long time. Does she still have the ability to make a serious long-term monogamous relationship work? It looks like she never did. Not the a-hole. Update. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. Reading your perspectives really helped me sort through my feelings during an incredibly tough time. Here's the update. After I posted, Rachel intensified her efforts to reconcile. She sent me long texts about how she regretted everything and how I was the love of her life. When I didn't respond, she showed up at my apartment, crying and begging for another chance. I told her I still needed space and wasn't ready to talk, but before leaving, she accused me of being cold and said I was throwing away something special. A few days later, I got some new information that completely shifted things. It turned out the guy Rachel cheated with wasn't just some random hookup from a bar. He was an ex-boyfriend. She had been messaging him for weeks leading up to that night. Their conversations were flirty, suggestive, and way more than I'd consider appropriate. I found this out through someone who showed me screenshots Rachel had clearly tried to keep hidden. When I confronted Rachel with this, she initially denied it, but when I mentioned the messages, she broke down and admitted everything. She claimed she'd been feeling insecure and reconnecting with him made her feel desirable again. She insisted it didn't mean anything and that I was still the one for her, but it felt like yet another betrayal. At this point, I told her I was done. There's no coming back from this for me. She cheated, lied, and broke my trust on multiple levels. I ended things for good, and since then, I've cut off all contact with her. It's been a rough week, but I feel at peace with my decision. As much as I cared about Rachel, I know I deserve someone who values honesty and loyalty as much as I do. Thank you again to everyone who helped me see things clearly. I'm finally moving forward. Well, she certainly found out that she, in fact, does not have it. You're absolutely not the a-hole for refusing to take her back. Cheating isn't a mistake. It's a choice, a deliberate, selfish act that prioritizes ego over commitment. Have you ever given someone who wronged you a second chance? Did you regret it? Share your experience with us in the comments. Up next, the worst game of hide and seek. Found wife of 9 years in bed with another man after she forgot to pick up our daughter from her cousin's home. I feel like I'm going crazy or something because she's so calm and acting like nothing happened. Yesterday, I was at an event in the morning to celebrate the employees who have worked at the company I own. I have worked hard to provide both my wife and daughter with a better life. We both married young and were raised in a rough neighborhood. We had our daughter young and graduated high school the same year our daughter was born. It was rough at the beginning. I worked a lot and went to school, and maybe in some aspects I neglected her and should have been more present. But when I would also cook, clean, and take my daughter with me as a newborn to school or work. Anyways, yesterday I get a call at this event from my wife's cousin, and she's annoyed because my wife didn't pick up our daughter at the time she said she would. I was surprised because that didn't sound like her, and then immediately drove over to pick up my daughter. Before leaving, I checked my wife's location, and it looked like it was turned off. I brushed it off and thought it was the signal messing up because our area doesn't always have the best since it's tucked in the hills. My daughter was tired, so when we got home, she went straight to bed. I went upstairs and heard another man's voice, and my heart sank to my stomach. When I opened the door, I saw both of them. It looked like they were trying to hide under the bed, but failed. I threw him out of the house quietly so my daughter wouldn't see. Since then, I've been sleeping in the guest room. My wife says that I'd be stupid to file for divorce because our daughter would see me as a deadbeat who left her and her mom, and that I worked too much, and it's my fault she was with that man. I mean, I think she's partially right. I have always worked a lot, and this month was so hectic that we haven't been intimate, but it's always been for her and for our family. I'm just so torn. It's driving me crazy that she keeps on saying that I'm overreacting and that this kind of thing is normal in marriage, and I don't know. This kind of thing never crossed my mind. Update. Thank you everyone for the love and advice that this post got. I'm talking to lawyers, she's being kicked out, and I am keeping custody of my daughter. Let's see how the community reacts. She's gaslighting you and it's apparently working out. But no, if you expose her infidelity to friends and family, they won't see you as a deadbeat for working. She could have communicated to you for having shorter work hours or more vacation for family time. She chose to be selfish, and it isn't normal if she tried to hide under the bed. She tried to rug sweep and make you out to be the bad guy. Your daughter is young, but will understand later on. But if you let this slide, she will continue. Someone else adds, why are you sleeping in the guest bedroom? DNA test your daughter. Control the narrative. Let people know exactly what happened because she will paint herself as the victim and you are the abuser. Have dignity and get a divorce. The OP replies, thanks for the response, but to answer your questions, I don't want to sleep on that bed ever again. My daughter is a spitting image of me, so I don't think it would be in her best interest to put her through that unless my wife brought it up. Even if she wasn't, as far as I'm concerned, she's mine. Yeah, I think the cousin knows because she was asking questions and looking at me funny when I couldn't answer where my wife was. I agree with you. It's fresh, I will just feel completely thrown off. Hiding under the bed? Really? I don't think I've heard that one before. The only deadbeat behavior here is forgetting to pick up your kid because you're too busy being a selfish cheater. She couldn't even plan her alibi properly, let alone convince you that her affair was somehow your fault. Would you be as torn as OP, or would you rip the band-aid off? Let us know below. Up next, you know what every toxic situation needs? An innocent child to raise in the chaos. I, 26 female, just found out I'm pregnant after having revenge sex with the fiance, 35 male, of the girl, 30 female, who my ex-boyfriend, 32 male, cheated on me with for 2 years. I, 26 female, I just read the title, I'm not going to read it again. My ex and I met when I was 20, but were only friends until we started dating 2.5 years ago. I found out last year that my ex had been cheating on me for basically our whole relationship with a girl he met through a mutual friend. I broke things off after I found out and told the girl's fiance about their affair. He ended up breaking off their engagement after he found out, and she seemed nonchalant about it until she realized that my ex's money wasn't actually his. My grandma left me a lot after she passed back in 2019, and my ex had been flaunting around the things I'd gifted him throughout our relationship to her, even going as far as to claim that the house and antique car my grandpa left me in his will were my ex's. It's not something I'm proud of now that I think back to it, but I did allow my ex to walk all over me for the first month or two after I broke things off because I missed him so much. I gave him money and tried to make things work, but would always get reprimanded by my parents and friends when I'd run to them crying after he ghosted me for her. I didn't officially give him up until the girl's ex-fiance messaged me. It told me that she was rubbing it in some of their old friends' faces about how pathetic I was and how desperate I was for my ex, who didn't even give an F about me. I was really upset and asked him if he'd be willing to meet up with me because I knew that if I talked to my parents or friends about this, then they'd just lecture me even more. He agreed, and the two of us met up at a random food cart place. We ended up spending most of the day just exploring and talking about how we were doing. He had also confided in me about his relationship with his ex. They'd known each other for 10 years and they'd liked each other for most of the time they were friends, but he wasn't looking for a relationship because he was focusing on school. He had decided to give them a chance after she'd driven 12 plus hours overnight to him because they'd talked on the phone and he said he was feeling under the weather and was stressed for how vigorous his residency schedule was. She'd dropped everything to take care of him, helped clean his place, and made him some home-cooked meals after finding out that he was surviving off of vending machine snacks and instant coffee. He told me in detail about how he'd never felt so loved and cared for, how after she'd done that for him, he'd decided that she was the one, that if this wasn't love, then love wasn't real. Finding out that she was cheating for the last 2 years made everything click into place. She'd been pushing off getting married, telling all of her friends that she was having doubts about him. He'd been trying to convince her into going to couples counseling when I broke the news to him that she was sleeping with my ex. I felt like a monster, hearing their love story and then realizing that they didn't get their happy ending because of my ex, and I messed with my head. We continued to talk from time to time, checking in on each other and meeting up for a quick bite every now and then. We lost contact after the girl my ex cheated on me with somehow convinced him to take her back. I became slightly depressed after he cut me off, explaining to me that he was still in love with her and wanted to work things out, which meant a clean slate. I found out through some internet snooping that my ex cheated on her too, which was why she went back to her ex-fiancé. A few months passed and things went back to semi-normal. I started getting therapy and was about ready to put myself back out there to try out the dating pool again when around New Year's I got a call from the guy. He was crying and asking if I was available to talk. Of course I said yes, and out of concern met up with him at his place. He broke down to me and told me about how he'd found her and my ex in his mom's guest bedroom during Christmas when she'd snuck him in for a quickie during his family's busy holiday party. All hell broke loose when he'd found them in the guest bedroom after spending 20 minutes looking for her everywhere. We drank a bit and ended up having sex. He apologized and told me that that was a mistake and he wasn't in his right mind, that he just wanted revenge sex. But it didn't make him feel any better after I tried to message him platonically a few times after to see if he was all right, but he blocked me. So I dropped it and went on with my therapy and life. I went in last week to check with my doctor since I'd been getting bad cramps and to get a new prescription refill for my birth control that I used to help with my PCOS. I had to do a usual test to double check for the possibility if I was pregnant and was very surprised when it came back positive. I have been sitting on this knowledge and contemplating on if I should tell him, not tell him, or if I should even keep the pregnancy. My doctor did inform me that since I am still in the earlier stages, I am still a big risk of having a miscarriage. So I don't know if I should be even worrying about all of this, since there is a chance that I could lose it, and then it would just seem like I was trying to grab his attention or something, especially after he'd made it clear to me that he wasn't comfortable talking to me anymore after we slept together. I haven't told anyone and have been going crazy because I don't know what to do. Update. A lot has happened since my original post. I know a lot of people were against this, but I went through with the pregnancy and I am forever thankful for my beautiful baby. I had originally planned to get an abortion, but I found myself unable to go through with the appointment. I am pro-choice and always will be. Just because I choose to keep my baby doesn't mean another woman or girl should be forced to keep a pregnancy they do not wish to continue. Everyone has a right to their own bodies. My parents were very upset with me and my whole family disowned me. I listened to what some of you said about letting the father know. We'll be referring to him as D. After many failed attempts to reach out to him, I decided to go in person. D was not happy when I showed up at his place, but when I told him why, he agreed to talk with me. D let me know that he'd officially ended things with his ex and wanted to go no contact with me because I was another tie to his past with her. But he was willing to try and figure out a co-parenting plan with me if I agreed to a paternity test first. I of course felt a bit bad about the paternity test part, but agreed to it since we both had only been acquaintances that bonded over trauma. Everything was honestly easy cruising until I started to spot around the 26-week mark. My OBGYN explained that while spotting is normal while pregnant, mine was heavier and my blood sugar and blood pressure also both worried them because of gestational diabetes and preeclampsia risk. After a few nights of D insisting on sleeping on my couch, I had him help me move some of my things to his place since he lived closer to the hospital. I'm very thankful I decided to semi-move in with him when I did because I wanted a premature labor at 32 weeks. I am very thankful to have had D and his family as my support system. His mom would come and switch out with him at the hospital and advocated for me whenever I felt washed out or unheard. She helped me both emotionally and physically and stood by me. Dee's mom also helped me work through my emotions when all I wanted was my mom. She and my dad had gone no contact with me after I decided to keep and have my baby. Dee's mom was an absolute godsend also because she's a retired nurse. She started in OB, went to NICU, and eventually later settled into lactation before retiring. and explained things to me when we found out that my baby had respiratory problems and had SUA, single umbilical artery, and that it could have been a factor into why I went into premature labor. She stayed with Dee and I so she could help me with pumping since I wasn't able to produce milk, and encouraged me when I felt like such a failure for not being able to take care of my son when he needed me the most. She drove me to and from the hospital while my son was in the NICU because I was healing and so mentally and physically exhausted. I really and truly believe that I didn't fall into deep postpartum depression because she held me and helped me with each step and was always so patient with me, even when I wasn't with myself. Dee's mom would constantly remind me that nothing was our fault and no one did anything wrong. It's just that everyone is faced with hardships in life, and this was one we'd work together to get through. My son graduated from the NICU and came home a month after I did. Dee's mom visited us often and helped with him since Dee and I are first-time parents. Dee's dad joked that he felt like she and I had the baby together, and he and Dee were both just background characters that make guest star appearances every now and then since Dee was working so much in order to build more PTO, and his mom wouldn't bring his dad along when she'd come visit, since she didn't want him to disturb me and the baby with his loudness. Dee's dad is hard of hearing and can sometimes be unaware of his volume, so he took no offense to it. Dee's siblings and family members posted a lot about our son because he was the first grandchild and first baby in a long time. Dee's youngest cousin is 17, turning 18 this year. Somehow someone must have shared a photo or something, but pictures of us reached my family and my parents demanded I let them meet my son. Dee was supportive of whatever I chose to do and said he'd agree to meet them if that's what I wanted. After thinking about it for a few days, I decided that I wanted to talk to my parents before I let them meet my son. When we met up to talk, my parents were offended that I didn't bring my son with us and left him with Dee's parents. They said some really hurtful things, and then my dad started to question on when Dee was going to ask him for permission for us to get married since we didn't already have a shotgun wedding while I was pregnant. I was okay with them insulting me since I'd grown up with it and was used to it, but once my parents put their target on Dee and his family, I became upset and decided it was time for us to leave. My parents did try to petition for legal visitation rights. Honestly, before this whole ordeal, I did not even know that grandparents' rights existed, but were denied because my son is still very young and because both Dee and I are very much on good terms, are living in the same household, and they couldn't find or prove that there was any danger to our son's well-being. My family did try to reach out to us and claim that we were horrible people for denying my parents their grandchild, but no one ever seemed to be able to make a peep when Dee's family would defend us and point out that my family had been the one to disown me, and that no one cared to see if I was okay until after I had the baby and everything was handled. Dee's mom and my mom got in a verbal, almost physical altercation after my mom had made false reports to CPS and called the police to do multiple welfare checks on us. My mom was given a warning by the police for harassing us after one specific incident where she threw a tantrum and caused a scene when the police found nothing wrong in the welfare check. And she refused to listen to her demands to have my son temporarily taken away from us and put in her custody for his safety. Dee and I currently have restraining orders pending against my parents and certain family members. One of the reasons I decided to update is because about 2 months ago, a friend of Dee's asked him out to have some drinks, and they ran into his ex-fiancée who later messaged him to tell him that she regretted the way they ended and how she was very hurt when she heard that we had a baby together, especially with it being so soon after their relationship. Dee wouldn't talk to me about how he felt, and when I asked him, he just brushed it off or switched the conversation onto a topic about our son that he knew would distract me. I noticed Dee pulling away from me and how our relationship became a bit awkward and strained after their run-in and her message, because I know he still has feelings for her and I am afraid that he might feel trapped with me and our son. I also noticed that the drama with my family has made Dee and his family less patient with me and my son. During Mother's Day, I overheard a few of his family members make comments to Dee about me being at their family barbecue since I was just my son's mom and not really part of the family. Dee just shrugged and said I didn't have anyone else to spend the day with. With how tense things have been, I've been thinking about moving out and back into my place. I stayed with Dee at his place after I gave birth, but now that our son is slightly older and I am healed, I want to give Dee back some space so that he can start dating again if he wants to, and to give him back some more bachelor time when I have our son. I want to find a way to approach me moving out and us making a co-parenting plan without making things more awkward or possibly ruining the relationship I have with Dee and his parents. I don't want them to feel like I'm not grateful or anything, but I do want to go back to work and get my life back on track so that I can provide my portion of needs for my son and not want to depend on his family for more than appropriate. Update. Maybe I'm overthinking things. I've been trying my best to not check my phone or Reddit since I honestly am a little overwhelmed right now. I will let you all know that I did talk to Dee and he was against me moving out. He also wasn't willing to talk about the situation with how he's been acting after running into his ex, and said I was bringing up something that didn't matter since we were talking about me wanting to move out. I haven't said anything about what I heard during Mother's Day, and I don't think I'm going to mention it since I feel really bad that it was meant to be a private conversation, so I don't think anyone meant anything bad. During our conversation, Dee let me know that maybe I'm just overthinking it or overreacting, and that I shouldn't make big decisions like moving out. He also talked about how because our son is a preemie, he'd prefer if one of us was a stay-at-home parent until he turned 2 or 3 years old so he could catch up with his peers, and then once he started pre-K, then we could go back to work again. But I feel like he's been trying to avoid me since the conversation, but I could also be overthinking like he said. But after reading someone's comments, I do feel like I'm valid in the way I feel, but I'm also not sure anymore. I want to do what's best for my son. I know people already think I'm so dumb and that I shouldn't have had him, but I'm trying to be better for my son. I feel like he's my only family left, and I really want to try to do what's best for him. Well, how the turntables. Nothing says trauma bond like getting knocked up through revenge cheating. Sounds like this is just a stew of hurt people hurting people. In all seriousness, I hope things work out for you, OP. All the best. What would you have done? Let us know in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon.